Well, she was in the truck. Randy said that she laid up in the back of the truck with this handicap. They give us drive time. At that time, we was leaving 3:30 of the day. So we didn't know nothing about it until we come back to work the next morning.
In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Summer Wells case, the most recent information. There's been a lot happening since there was a raid on one of the properties very close to the Wells house. We're going to talk about that, as well as various connections to people who live in that area and the tree trimmers. There's a lot of information that came out from the tree trimmers, starting with the time that they left the property. According to one of the men who was a tree trimmer, he said they were given time to leave early from the property, drive time, which would be paid time for them to get from the worksite to home. And what this guy said was that they left between 3 p.m. and 3:30 that afternoon, the same day that Summer went missing, which is June the 15th of 2021. Now, I had always wondered about the tree trimmers, and what we found out way back after they'd been questioned by the FBI, there really wasn't much information, but what had been put out was that they had been cleared, and so we never got much detail about it. But there is a conversation with one of these men, and he gives out some specific details. And you'd think if they had been there from the morning until about 3:30, they would be able to tell exactly, well, maybe not exactly, but they would be able to give an eyewitness account as to when Candace left the property, maybe how many times she came and went, and when she got back, who was there, possibly if they had seen Hunter there with her. Also, when Dawn came, when did Dawn leave the property that morning? The next day they came back to continue their work, and they saw Dawn there in the morning and they spoke to him. Now, from what I can gather, the most recent break in the case possibly is this piece of information, which is that the FBI were able to track down the red Toyota Tacoma. So early on we found out there was a report that someone said they'd seen a red Toyota pickup truck and that it had a white ladder rack and they'd been looking for it. And I do have Don talking about that as well. There is a clip of him talking about that truck.
And I called CBI and says, look, I'm going to go over here and get this address for you. I took off work, drove clear over there, got the address. I said, I think you need to check it out because they had a truck in service at that time that had that ladder rack thing on it. I said, it's not here now, but they did have one in the shop there.
And walk me through that truck. Where's that truck come into this?
I have no idea. Somebody said that they seen it parked in our driveway when Summer got gone. So it's just an eyewitness account.
Now,
but that
at the bottom of the hill or the top of the hill?
In our driveway at the bottom.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, in our driveway, at the bottom. Somebody's seen it, supposedly. But that's all it is just an eyewitness account or whatever. And they've never found this truck. But it could have been the one where his dad works. They might have took that truck over there in prison as out on parole. And I mentioned all that to him. And supposedly searched all them. But he probably, he could have, I don't know. When you got them kind of connections and you hang around with druggies, and they're into all these, criminal activities, you can basically make a lot of stuff happen if you wanted to.
Right.
And stealing somebody's little girl is probably not too far-fetched.
Do you think she's alive?
Well, dreams that I've had, you know, 2 of them sent to me via Facebook, and the one that I had and the one that Candace had, I'm not sure. She's either in a really well-to-do place or it was her last thoughts.
But he doesn't say anything about the tree trimmers having that truck and how long it would have been parked there. But anyhow, so the new piece of information is that the FBI did track down that specific truck, and it belonged to a man named Randy. This guy Randy, he is one of the sons of the man who had the property raided on Van Hill, and the guy sold the vehicle in 2022. Okay, so we have Summer goes missing June 15th of 2021. This guy sells the vehicle in 2022. Now, I can't confirm for sure, but what I did see, which this is more just rumors or a comment that had been made, is that Paul Hill sold his truck to a woman at the church that Don Wells went to, the same church that Don and Candace had gone to. And then Robin Lane is the one who bought it. Now, again, this is just rumors. I can't confirm any of this, but it's kind of interesting to hear this, even though it's unconfirmed. So back to this information about the tree trimmers. What was said is that the guy named Randy said he saw Summer laying up in the back of Grandis's truck that morning. And what I understand from this, the implication is that she's actually not awake, that she's more so laying in the truck asleep. As far as what she was wearing, there was no comment on that. You know, I kind of was wondering, was she wearing that suit, the final suit that we saw, the navy suit with the jacket when she's beside the milk? But why would they have the milk in the vehicle when they're leaving from the house? Anyhow, so he said they didn't know at the time who it was, but they saw them come out from the property at that time in the morning, and they had blocked the area for, I guess, for safety. The area was blocked off, and there was a log, I believe, and so they had to move that so that Candace and them could get off of the property. They didn't realize until the next day, when the news had come out, that actually the people at that property was Summer's family that they had seen come off the property. They didn't really know Candace and Dawn. They were just there to do the job. So as far as the Toyota Tacoma, it is a red vehicle, and the interesting part is that, you know, what Dawn says is that it was reported there was a red Toyota Tacoma that was seen, but they couldn't locate it, and that nobody had come forward. So the FBI has tracked down that vehicle, and I don't know what they found inside, if they got some kind of forensic evidence, if they found, who knows, some kind of maybe blood evidence, maybe some DNA. Who knows what they might have found? Maybe they had a dog in there to check it out. They could have sprayed that vehicle down with luminol and then looked at it in the darkness to have that blue light expose all of the genetic material. The idea is that after they tracked down that red truck, that is what led them to the Van Hill property, because that guy Randy, he's connected to the Van Hill property because he is the son. He is one of the brothers of the man who owns that land. The person who is giving this information, who is having a conversation, and it is recorded with Ziggy. Now she actually went out there and spoke to this guy, but he's not saying that it's him that saw Summer. What he's saying is that Randy told him that he saw Summer, that Randy is the one that saw Summer laid up in the back of Grandis's truck. And he's the one that said they left between 3 and 3:30 p.m. So they wouldn't have seen anything that happened on the property after then. Another key piece of information as far as timeline, supposedly the photo of or video of Summer in the truck when she's beside those milk jugs, that is approximately before 3:30. It's around, I'm not sure if it was, let's say 3:20 something when that is taken. And I'm very skeptical about that video because there's a lot of questions as to whether it is more so just being put out to show the last photo, or if actually that is the last photo. But if they were arriving at that time, then the tree cutters, the tree trimmers, wouldn't have seen anything after that point, if what they're saying is true. Now, this guy, Randy, he hasn't spoken. We haven't heard his side of it. It's all coming from this other guy. And so it would be interesting to find out what Randy has to say that happened that day. And I'm guessing there would be some contradiction with the story this guy is telling. But what he says is that Randy is in another state. And I can't confirm it, but supposedly he was not there the next day, that he did not show up for work the next day. Don't hold me to that because I don't have the confirmation for it. With that timeline, you have to remember what Don said specifically, that he arrived there before any of the police. He says there was no one there when he got there. And here's Don specifically saying those words.
I knew as soon as I pulled up, as soon as I pulled up and I didn't get a call back from Candace saying, oh, we found her, and I come all the way out from Jonesboro, and I probably made it in 30 minutes at least, if not faster. But I beat all the police there, and I went straight to the bottom property. I seen everybody looking. I knew she was gone because she don't go away from the house ever.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I just knew. I knew right then, that very second, that she was gone.
Okay, what inside of you brought that so quickly, brother? Where did you come from on that?
Well, I knew they was looking around the hill and everything up top there, and I drove straight to the bottom there where that little funky shed is there, and I went down the hill by the creek in that little four-wheel drive Subaru. I went straight down there to the creek, and I seen the boys down there, and they know not to travel alone. They was together, and I seen my neighbor walking around, and I knew my heart just sank right there. I just knew it, that somebody took her. Because she just don't go nowhere, but she would never leave from up of the, around the house there. No way.
And when you got there, do you remember what time you arrived?
I have no idea. I wasn't paying attention. I was on Messenger with Candace as she was driving her mother's truck around looking for her in the area. Okay. So I talked to her the whole way there, and it's really kind of weird that we was able to talk all the way there, because normally we don't have connection like that.
Right.
As soon as it's kind of odd.
And what was she driving?
Her mother's truck.
What time did you get there? Do you remember?
Well, they say, it's really strange because I thought it was 5:30, but the 911 call says 6:30, 6:26 is when the first call come in. And that could have well be. Sometimes I work till sunset, A lot of times I have been here lately, but I thought it was 5:30. But the strange thing of it is when we went to the Hawkins County to do our lie detectors and everything like that, they took all of our phones, and then magically all of our phone records from 3:30 on that day have been deleted.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, me, my wife's, and her mother have all been deleted from 3:30 on.
So they had your phones that day then?
Yes, sir.
And when did they give them back to you?
So I believe that, if what Hunter says is true about when he looked on her phone and the deleted messages said it's done, I just feel like that was a mistake. I feel like that was meant to go to the burner phone. And I feel like that's why all the messages from 3 o'clock on, how Donnie says, it's so weird, we got our phones back and everything was deleted from 3 o'clock on. In my mind, it's because Donnie was like, oh no, Candace, you messaged him on your regular phone. Mm-hmm. You need to go delete it. And we're going to delete everything from 3 on, so that if the cops ask, well, why is everything deleted? We can say, well, I don't know. It's just a glitch, I guess. All the phones were deleted, because I could just see in his mind trying to think of a solution. And I don't know how those burner phones work. I don't know if you can trace them, but You know, there's the other possibility of maybe they thought, well, you know, they're not even going to ask for her phone. And if they do, then it's more safe because, you know, it's brand new phone. We just bought it. It's basically a throwaway phone.
So we have Dawn getting there before anyone. We have Hunter, who says there was a creepy guy, according to what he heard, what Candace told him about the conversation she had with Dawn. There was a creepy guy on the hill trying to touch the little kids. We have a whole bunch of tree cutters. From what I gather, there's maybe 3, maybe more, from what I could understand, but I'm not sure. They would have been able to see who was there on the property. So it seems like there was a lot going on that day. You know, it was a busy location. And then Candace, who was also very busy as well in the city in Kingsport, going to the hospital, going to the horse pond, going shopping, getting the drinks at Sonic. There is so much that was going on that day, both in the city and at their very secluded home location.
Then I said, well, if we got to wait 30 minutes, why don't we just bring Summer down here and let her play for a little bit?
Okay.
And that's what we did.
Okay.
I mean, there was nothing. I honestly didn't see him drink nothing down here. I don't know what he's talking about. I really don't.
All right. So it's your word against his, basically.
Pretty much.
Okay. On this scenario right
Yes.
here. Okay, so from here, where do you guys go?
Walgreens to pick up my mom's prescription.
Okay, is that the Walgreens right down at the
Yeah,
edge
it's
here?
right straight across.
It's the one that I showed the other day that it's right down here?
Yeah, when we turned to come down here,
Yeah.
it's right there on the corner.
Okay, and you get mom's prescription.
Yep.
Then what happens?
Then I told Mom, I said, why don't we get a Sonic?
Okay.
Because it's hot out.
Right.
So we drove in there, got a Sonic.
Right across the street.
Yep, right across the street.
Okay.
And then we left from there, and I went up Moreland Drive because I had to pick up a few things. I was in the store for maybe 5 minutes.
Okay.
Grabbed some milk and some cheese, and I don't remember what else I bought.
Okay. And that's the foodless?
No, priceless.
Priceless. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And then I was like, Hunter, you're not coming to the house. I'm sorry to tell you, but you're going back to your house.
Okay.
And I took him back to his house and dropped him off and left. And Summer was still awake when I left his house.
Okay. Okay.
And Allie did never walk to the truck and try to talk to me or something.
Okay.
So there's so many questions that come up, but it kind of does go together with the Van Hill property because the guy, Randy, is connected to the Van Hill property. It is a red Toyota Tacoma that he owned, and supposedly that is what led the FBI to go over to the Van Hill property. So I don't know exactly what the connection is. What do you guys all think? How does this all fit together? This guy was driving that red vehicle, possibly, maybe not. Then did Summer somehow get into that vehicle? Or is this not really going to be helpful? Because what Candace is saying is that they had arrived at the house much later. So she is putting the time much more forward, that Summer had not gone missing at that time. When these men left at about 3 or 3:30, Candace tells us that Summer was still there with them. So unless one of these guys came back later without Candace knowing, then I can see how there would be a connection. But specifically, the story that Candace gives us is telling us that Summer was fine. Summer had been taken into the house much later on. You know, they had planted flowers, they'd put the groceries away. She told the boys to watch Summer, and Summer went down into the basement to play. And so the timeline is much further, much later into that day. And by the time they actually called the police, I believe it was about 6:30 when they called the police. And so you see that is much later than the time these tree trimmers left, which is 3:30 at the latest. So I'm not sure exactly how this would fit in, but of course we know when there's a crime, there are sneaky things that are happening. People are sneaking around. Criminals usually hide, and somebody might have been waiting. There could have been a plan in place. It could have been something that had been discussed a week prior. It's quite interesting We haven't been told yet what it is. Another thing that was said, the next day when they returned, Don was there that morning. I think he said at about 8:30 or so. And he's kind of putting suspicion onto Don that Don isn't acting right because the conversation he was having with Don Wells was more about stuff like politics, talking about Trump, and he wasn't really talking about, or he didn't seem like a father who is looking for his daughter, is what this guy has conveyed. So he is definitely throwing Don under the bus or putting Don's behavior into question. Now, I did see there's a video that Candace had shared, and it specifically is of the tree trimmers at their property that she'd taken. I'm not sure exactly when she took the video, but you can see that it's actually a helicopter, and they have a long cord connected to several blades, the circular cutting blades, and they're basically just flying up in the air. That thing is attached, and it's cutting the trees as they are trying to fly and coordinate. Somehow they're trying to coordinate cutting the trees they want to cut or control. At the same time, they have to avoid wires. They have to make sure that it's safe, that there's nobody down below who's going to be hurt. And I did see one video where there was some cutting happening on the road with one of these companies, and they actually cut a branch and it fell right onto the guy who was in the basket. That they raise up that basket, it hit this guy. It was nearly fatal. It looked like it could have been fatal, but it wasn't. But I kind of wonder, when I see the video that Candace took, it looks pretty dangerous. Can you imagine if somebody was down like below and something fell on top of them, or if by chance they cut down a larger tree and it fell a longer distance, if it's really, really tall and then it goes crashing down onto somebody's property, or if it's like I say, like a really tall tree and then it crashes, if they cut it and it falls on top of somebody's roof. Can you imagine that? Anyway, so I just kind of thought, what if Summer had been playing in that, or not even Summer, like anyone could have been playing on one of those properties, and then an accident happens and a huge heavy branch falls on somebody who is, there on the property. And so I just kind of thought, that's pretty crazy. But they do need to be very careful when they have those huge tree cutters up in the air swinging back and forth. Now back to the whole raid. That was back on November the 13th is when they raided that property on Van Hill Road. And we didn't find out until the 18th. The news channel, specifically Ansley Daniel, came out and reported that they had raided that property. But we're finding out, behind the scene, we're getting this information. As far as the information from the tree cutters, that is not new, because actually Ziggy had that conversation. I think it was a year after Summer went missing is when she shared that conversation about the tree cutters, specifically coming from one of the tree cutters that she spoke to. One of the things that I was thinking about was that as far as Don, he went out that day and he took the red Subaru instead of taking his white work truck, this white pickup here that he normally uses for his work, which is drywalling. That gets really messy, and he has a work truck, but he decided to take the Subaru instead. Now here's what he said.
What car do you take that day? I forget.
I had the Subaru that day.
Okay,
Yeah.
Why didn't you take your truck that day? People are going to ask that.
Well, because the car was just sitting there, and I'm paying these payments, $600 a month plus the insurance, and it's just sitting there. And I thought, well, I may as well get some use out of it. And I threw all my tools in there and started driving it for a little while, just because,
Yeah.
So he says he figured he would use the Subaru because he wanted to get some use out of it. And I have to question if that's true. I don't know if I can really trust what he's saying, like most of us. So could it be that he wanted to be possibly be faster? For some reason, he didn't want to have his work truck that specific day, and I'm not sure why it is. But that Subaru is red, and he might be the one who introduced the story about a red pickup truck. So I don't know how exactly the two go together, or if it has anything to do with it. We do know Don had fired Dudley the previous day to this happening. And you've got to hear this clip here, because specifically, Don Wells is saying, he kind of let it out, I think by mistake, not realizing. He said that Dudley is the only person that would have known where he was. So I have to wonder. Let's hear the clip.
So I go to lunch, I come back, I tell him, go home. Go home now. Get the hell off this job and don't come back. Well, he got mad and he tried everything in the world and anything he could to get at me and get me fired. He called my bosses constantly, harassed them constantly, come out on the jobs constantly. If anybody knew where I was at that time, it would have been him. And the day after I fired him was when Summer got gone. If anybody knew where I was at that time, it would have been him.
So I have to wonder if that is the whole reason why he fired Dudley. And he's making up all this other stuff to make it look like Dudley was the problem. He's throwing all this information out there about Dudley not doing his work, making a mess, all this crazy stuff. And yet he says that Dudley is the only one that would have known exactly where he was. If Dudley's not there at work where they normally would work together, then there was no one to see exactly when Don is coming and going. We know that Don said he spoke to Jamie and that Jamie had mentioned the red Subaru, and so that is kind of like an alibi that yes, he did stop into work, he did talk to that guy, but does that guy know how long Don was at work? No, that guy doesn't know. There was no confirmation how long Don was at work that day. The theory coming from Mary and Janie is very interesting, and they're able to account for pretty much everything, because when you fit together the way they fit it together, it really makes a lot of sense. Now, if you listen to Don, he's making everyone look like they're lying. So you've got, if you count them out, you've got Dudley who's lying, you've got Jose who's lying, you've got Ali who is also lying, you've got Hunter who is lying, I don't know how many others, they're all lying. But if you make only one person the liar and that everyone else is pretty much telling the truth, then it all kind of fits together. So if we put the one person who is not telling the truth as Don and everyone else is telling the truth, this is the theory according to Mary and Janie, and they are more suspicious about Don. And their idea is that yes, in fact, Don has done this in the past, and they think that he did arrange this whole thing and that somehow he had Summer taken and that it had to do with his debt because of all the substance abuse that he has. He has some sort of debt, and they can see that this could be a very real, like this is possible according to what they know of him, that they grew up with him, they know him. It's nothing to do with what they heard on the news. This is their own point of view of their stepbrother.
I think that what Candace went in the house and she got Summer and she went in the house and she told the boys, "Hey, get off your games. We're going to go play hide and seek." So she comes out, tells the boys Summer's going to hide, whispers to Summer, "I know a great place. Go hide in the shed, the shed, down there." Sends the boys are off counting. Summer, okay, Mom, great idea. She runs to the shed. The boys start looking. Candace directs them, "Go look over there. I think, and she's watching them, making sure they don't go anywhere around Summer. Yeah. She waits for the confirmation on the burner phone or her phone. It's done.
Yeah.
Then she calls, the boys back. "Well, we can't find her nowhere. We looked and looked." So maybe Candace looks a little bit, because this is the plan.
Yeah.
And then, waits for the confirmation from whoever took her.
Yeah, it's done.
And even as far as the famous scream that Jody Sue heard, that could be true. Because what if Summer did scream when the person came and got her from the shed?
So that's really, really interesting the way that they put that all together. But I'm kind of left, when we have all this information here, it's pointing at some different possibilities, because if there is suspicion on this guy who lived there at the Van Hill property or had a connection there, if the suspicion is on that guy, you know, did he sneak up to the property? Was it a plan where Dawn or Candace and Dawn or whoever decided that Summer would go with that guy? Is it something where there had been a threat that they wanted to take Summer, that there'd been comments made, let's say in the past couple of weeks? They'd been talking about things, possibly Dawn and Candace didn't agree, and then it happened. Or is it the other possibility where it was another person, the whole Marlena story, that it was going to be her daughter that was going to get taken for another kind of vendetta or possibly a debt? So it's all very confusing because there is so many different stories out there. But the fact is, the FBI went and raided the Van Hill property, and that is after 4 years. That is where this trail has taken them, or possibly they had to rule something out. They had to find out what was going on just to make sure. I guess we're going to have to wait and see when they're finally able to actually come out and maybe do a news conference. So I have to apologize. You know, it's a bit confusing, and I'm actually going to make another video to go over things a little bit more clearly and piece things together and talk about it a bit more. But let me know what you all think. Does it make sense? Are they on to something? And how does all of this fit together? Does it have something to do with these tree trimmers? I think they would have seen a lot. Them being there till 3:30 and having that road blocked off, that means they would have seen everyone who was coming and going, including Fred Hill, including everyone, including Dawn, and they would have so much information. Their interview with the detectives that very day would be pretty interesting if we could have that. If we could see that, I think there's got to be a lot there.
This is Van Hill Road. It's about 9.5 miles from the Wells family home on Ben Hill Road, where Summer was reported missing. As you can see, there are posters here with her information on them. And last week, law enforcement conducted a search on this road in the 3500 block. It's about 2 miles back from where I'm standing here. It's very similar to Beach Creek, as the homes are spread out and there is a lot of land. It's also close to the Greene County line. We did reach out to Dawn and Candace after the TBI confirmed a recent search in their daughter's case. They said they do not want to be interviewed as they are waiting to hear more from the TBI and, quote, otherwise, it is just more drama and stirred pain, so there was nothing to say, end quote. We reached out to Hawkins County Sheriff Ronnie Lawson, too, and have yet to hear back. We also stopped by his office today and were told that he wasn't in. The TBI couldn't tell us what the tip about Summer was that led them here to Van Hill Road, or if anything came of it.
That's it for today. I want to thank you so much for joining me. Leave me your comments and we will talk about this.
What was she wearing that morning when you
The same. Well, when she was asleep next to me, I'm not sure. As I just woke up and they stayed in bed and I got gone to work. I'm not sure, but I know the picture of her wearing where she's asleep by the milk jugs. That's what she was wearing when she was kidnapped.
Okay, so it's the same outfit.
Yes.
And is that the outfit Candace said did she change when she went back in the house, or do we know?
I don't think so. That's the outfit she was going to wear for her first day of school.
Oh, so this is the outfit. So it had some sentimental value for her.
Yeah.
Did she pick it out?
I don't know. I'm always at work.